G'day folks, been a while since I put up a video. COVID's really cramping my style, what can I say? I don't know how many of you have tried to order parts lately, but waiting 3 weeks for simple little things like spark plugs has proven to be a real pain in my you-know-where. Anyways, what we got here for you today is 2006 CR85 with a blown top end. What happened was the young lads took it for a rip and didn't bother to check the antifreeze, so they cooked it up real good. Obviously blew out the piston. When you heat them up that much, the Nikasil plating takes a beating real bad, so there was a spot down to bare aluminum with no plating at all. And when I checked the cylinder, it was warped from the heat. So a long time waiting for parts and whatnot, we decided to sleeve the engine, and that fixed the warping problem and the Nikasil, and it was a heck of a lot cheaper than trying to find a new cylinder for one of these things. And so piston ring showed up, and it turns out they sent the ring that was for an oversized piston, so we had to wait a few more weeks. Finally got all the parts together, and we were hoping to put this motor together today and maybe get some ride in this weekend for the young lads. Alright, so there's our motor. As I said, we already had the top end done. I just wanted to show you the piston here. You can see the head of the piston. And right in this case, which would be the front of the engine where the exhaust port is, right? That's going to be the hottest spot because all the exhaust funnels through the piston and out the cylinder here, and it gets concentrated. You can see there where it burned up. Just the lip, and then of course the ring, and all in all, I've seen them go a lot worse, and they're lucky it didn't seize, but that's certainly enough to make a two-stroke not want to run. Alright, so here's our new piston. I already got the ring put on. If you remember from the other videos, or anybody with two strokes know this, there's a pin located right here. Alright, and that ring gap has to go onto that. Alright, you can try to jam it in this way, but you'll see the ring doesn't go into the piston all the way because that pin will go in everywhere else, just not on that side. Alright, so you always tell if you push it in, it'll stop there. So that's where that's supposed to be. You don't have to file these like you do on cars. They come to the right size. And here we got the cylinder with the sleeve put in it. Okay, you can see the owner had to take it to a machine shop and get this done. I don't have the boring machine to do it, but they did a great job. That's a I think it's an Athena sleeve. Okay, he did a little bit of porting in there to match up the ports with a Dremel, so it came out really nice. We should have no problem with that. And a cast iron sleeve obviously will last quite a while. Okay, so first step with the new piston here, you can put the ring on beforehand or after you get it on the rod. It doesn't matter. I just find it easier to do this, and especially after having a wrong ring show up. Okay, so what I like to do is put one of the clips in first. Doesn't matter which side. Usually I like the side away from me because that means I don't got to move the motor around. Now you notice there's a cutout here, and then you get your circle. The cutout side should be, so the ring will go in like that, so that the opening is away from that cutout. It'll let you get them out easier. Okay, so what I like to do is put the pin in first. You can see there's the pin in, and then you take your clip, and it just helps you to bottom it out so it doesn't go in all crooked. Trying to do this so you can kind of see. You just got to get it started. Okay, so you can see here how with the pin in, you just start your clip and then you just push it down. It'll sit right in that groove. You see it in there all the way around. And having the pin there just makes it so it doesn't go crooked. You can see now it's bottomed out. And that pin can't come out that side. So once you got that, you can just push the pin a little bit and it'll come back out the other side. Alright, so we have the one clip in. Now you can push your piston on and line it up and push your pin in from the other side. Okay, so once you've got that done, just check it. You want to make sure it's not super wobbly sideways, right? If it was really wobbly, then that would indicate that that top bearing, top end rod bearing was gone. But this one's pretty solid. And then, of course, it should rotate freely this front and rear, just not twisting side to side. And it will move this way. That's normal, but it's this sort of rocking action left and right that you don't want too much of. Again, just a little bit. When you're going to go put your other clip in, do yourself a solid and put a rag around the rod so that if you drop this, it lands on the rag instead of going down into your crankcase. You know, you could probably get it out, but there's an off chance that this is going to wedge itself in somewheres and you're going to be splitting the case. And it just is not worth the hassle for the sake of 30 seconds to put a rag around it like so. Alright, it'll just save you that one time in 1,000 if you do drop the darn thing. It's really not hard. I'm just trying to do it so that you can kind of see what's going on here. Okay, you don't want to score the piston. All you do is push it in with your thumb, get it to the last little bit, and then just give a little bit of a help, like so. Alright. And you should be able to see it there. All I do now is push it until it clicks into place. And you can hear it. And there you go. That's all there is to putting piston on the rod. Now you can get rid of your friendly neighborhood rag. Alright, now for the fun part. Putting the cylinder back on, or the jug, depending on where you're from. Honda was nice enough to provide new gasket. Certainly not for free. You could see, technically you could put it on backwards or try to, but the bolt holes don't quite line up, and you can see you have this extra ear that matches up the housing. Nothing to that. Obviously your surfaces, you want them clean. This has been wire wheeled. It's just been sitting for a couple of weeks waiting on parts. What I did here was basically coat it in oil. Inside the cylinder, get that thing completely wet, and that'll just make it all go in easier. You could try to ram them in there dry, but that tends to be problematic. In case you haven't noticed, I'm a fan of doing things easy. Okay, so the most important part here before you jam that cylinder on is to make sure that ring is in the right place. Again, once where that pin is. Then all you got to do is hold it like so, as tight as you can get her, and start your cylinder down. And you see there, it doesn't take any effort at all. Like, that's one finger. You see how easy that slid in there. An important thing is once you get it, don't twist or rotate the cylinder. Okay? That goes in like nothing. Like one finger will push that, as you can see. Okay? So it'll generally stop about 1/4 of an inch gap. Okay? To put it in the rest of the way, you could just use the nuts and pull it down, or you can just tap it lightly. And again, it's just the dowels that are holding it. Very light persuasion here with a rubber mallet. You can hear it when it bottoms out. Okay. At this point, you can cycle it. You can see how easy that moves. So there's your cylinder. Bolt put in place. Now we just got to put the nuts back on and torque it. 12mm nuts are on for the cylinder. They're just finger tight right now. Torque specs for both the cylinder and the head bolts is 19 to 21 foot-pounds, which comes out to something like 250-ish inch-pounds, depending on which way your torque wrench is for, like some of the smaller ones will come in inch-pounds, like this is an inch-pound. It doesn't have foot-pounds on it. I have a bigger one, but I don't need it for this because it's a pretty small setup. And it's good if you got a helper, but if you don't, then you got to deal with it. And what you do here is just tighten them down a little bit more than finger tight, evenly, before you start torquing them. Because if you torque the first one, but the cylinder isn't sitting perfectly flat yet, you're going to get a false reading because it's sort of twisting and binding a little bit. So you want to get that cylinder down flat before you actually apply torque to it. Okay, so all four are basically buttoned up. And I like to go crossways. Even though the manual doesn't state that's a requirement. There you go. Alright, again, the Honda uses a metal gasket. Alright, this it's kind of weird because the holes, the oval cutouts for the cooling system don't exactly match the cylinder or the head for that matter. Okay, don't get all worked up over it. You can see when you place it on that it completely covers a couple of the holes. Okay, the smaller ones. And that's normal. Okay, so you didn't get the wrong gasket. That's just how they're made. All right. Now there is, on some of them you'll see they'll write up on this part of the tab. This one here doesn't have it. This is a Tusk set. And to just show you, I have the old one here that we took off. You can see it says up on it. All right, so I'll let you know, because there are raised parts. I don't know if you can see it in the light, but there's raised, and obviously that means the other side is indented. So the indents down, the raised part goes up, and the tab goes towards the back of the engine like that. All right, and that's how your head gasket sits on. The head, again, the tab towards the back. This also has an arrow indicating front. You can't really screw it up because the cooling line that comes out of the crankcase goes to there. Alright, we'll set that on. Same thing, 4 nuts and the same torque. And the same thing, I just buttoned it down a little bit, so I'm torquing it in 2 passes essentially. Alright, head and cylinder are torqued. So the reed cage had to come out at the machine shop. I stuffed in a rag in because I had to clean up the gasket. Preferred tool, a nice soft wire wheel on drill. It does a really good job on aluminum because you're not pushing hard enough to damage it, and it'll just get the gasket off pretty quick. If you got a lot of RTV silicone or something like that, you might have to go at it with a X-Acto knife or a scraper, but you got to be careful because it's really easy, obviously, to gouge up the aluminum.
And the rag is just there to keep all the stuff from going into your engine. It'll blow out. It's only gasket material, but you certainly don't want to put anything in there unnecessarily. Okay, so here's our reeds. Bike ran fine before the unfortunate overheating incident. They're fine. I believe there were Boysons that were put into this, but I'm not sure. So I'm just going to clean up the gasket material here, hit it with some carb clean, get rid of some of this carbon, and we'll put those back in. Okay, so like I say, wire wheel does a pretty bang up job on there. Takes only a few seconds. Okay, carburetor boot all cleaned up. You can see here on these they use a rubber seal. Okay, we've got a new one. So I just pull that out. Easier said than done. There you go. Okay, so the rubber seal comes out pretty easy. No silicone or gasket material or any of that weird stuff. And that just goes in dry. You can see it's got 4 little tabs here that kind of help hold it in place. Always a good idea for a few cents, because they are dirt cheap, maybe $1 or $2. Okay, to replace that. 8mm bolts. Torque on these is 7 pounds. Okay, so there's your top end rebuild for the CR85R. This is a 06. Very simple job. Took maybe half an hour to get it apart, half an hour to put it together. You can do this on the bike. It's just so much easier to take the motor off for the sake of a couple of bolts. Alright, it's just, you can see it, you can visualize it easier, and it's easier on your damn back. So take the damn motor off, put it on a bench, and get it done right. Okay, I'm going to get this thing thrown on here. I'm not going to show you all that process, because if you're at this stage, then you probably know how to do it anyways. And we'll get her fired up, and you can hear her here. Alrighty, CR85's all back together. Old gas, added a little bit of oil just to give it a little bit more of a break-in mixture. With the sleeve, the big thing is you're supposed to warm it up, let it cool down 2 or 3 times to meld things together, they say. My version, just drive it like a normal person for a little while and let it break in. Got my test pilot here. He's going to start it for me and take her for a quick run. First kick. Yeah, it's a little smoky. First run after rebuild. Another quality rebuild by Schnepp Motors. Run good.